This webinar is about precision supplementation and advanced feed components for a successful transition cow management. My name is Jarissa Maselyne. I will be your moderator for today. I work at ILVO, which is the Flanders Research Institute for Agriculture, Fisheries and Food. And I'm involved in the work package team of IOF 2020. Now, the organizer of this webinar is Henning Lyngsø from Organe Institute, so he's also the one that you can contact for any questions that you would have also after the webinar. And we are in for a really interesting program with lots of speakers today. You will see Henning also as one of the speakers later on, and I'll guide you through this program today. So first of all, I would like to introduce you the context of this webinar. So this is all in the framework of the IOF 2020 project. And more specifically, the use case that Henning is also coordinating on precision mineral supplementation. Now, this is one of the use cases of the Internet of Food and Farm 2020 project, or in short, IOF 2020. Which is a large-scale pilot project on Internet of Things technology in agri-food. It has over 100 partners and has been running for a little over 4 years now, and it's almost ending. So this project is actually, the core of it is 33 different use cases in different domains in the agri-food sector, of which you see the domains on the left and a map of an overview of installation sites on the right. So it really covers the entire Europe, and these installation sites are usually practical farms or processing plants where the technology is being tested, validated and demonstrated. So if you want to know more also about the other use cases, I please welcome you to go to the website iof2020.eu. And also very interesting is that our final event is coming up from the 16th until the 18th of March, 3 half days of webinars, but it's a very interactive program with panels, with shorter breakout rooms, with a lot of parallel sessions. So if you're interested to check out the program and to register, please also go to the website. Okay, now before we get started with this webinar, I want to give you some practical arrangements. Please use the chat, make it a lively discussion, post questions during the presentations. So we work with pre-recorded presentations, so we will just play those, but all the speakers are present here. So after each presentation, the speaker and I will come up on the screen and I will ask any questions that were posed in the chat to the speaker for a live Q&A. Should it not be possible to answer all the questions live because there are maybe too many questions, the speaker will try to answer them afterwards in the chat, or we can also contact each other afterwards to answer any remaining questions. Now, if you want to send tweets or anything on social media, please use the hashtag Precision Supplementation Webinar. And stay tuned, and as we want to collect feedback about this webinar at the end. So if you stay until the end and you close and we close down the webinar, then you will get a short feedback survey. So if you would like to fill that in, that would be really great. And last but not least, I want to thank you for your interest, because there has been quite a lot of interest. We had over 230 registered people, and these are from 36 different countries, so that's really impressive. So both inside the EU and outside the EU, and it's really a multidisciplinary audience that we have today, from farmers over premix companies, researchers, consultants, authorities, media, etc. So I think it will be a really lively discussion, and we have a very full program, but still we plan to end on time at 12:30. So that was my introduction, and with that, I will leave the floor to our first speaker, which is Ole Lamp, with the introduction presentation on the challenges of the transition cow.
Hello and welcome to our today's webinar on automated precision supplementation. What I like to show you with the first presentation today and to introduce the topic we like to focus on are the challenges of the transition cow. I like to focus on the negative energy as well as the mineral and the protein balance as challenges for the cow in this period. My name is Ole Lamp. I'm a veterinarian and I work for the Agricultural Chamber of Schleswig-Holstein at the Research and Training Center in Futterkamp. We are engaged in education of future and present farmers, advisory service, applied science and research, and public relations. The transition period is the most crucial phase in a cow's productive life and productive cycle, because in this period many changes occur and the cow goes from one state to the other. It's regularly defined from a time point 3 weeks before calving and up to 3 weeks, some might even say 100 days after calving. And what happens in this phase is, of course, that the pregnancy ends, a calf is born, and the milk production begins, which means that there are fundamental changes in the metabolic situation, in the endocrine situation, and also changes in the feed intake that take place in this transition phase, and it's also answered by different feed compositions that have to attribute to the changing nutritional requirements. Let's take a detailed look at the transition period, what happens, and what does it mean to the cow. There are some typical implications for the metabolism and the endocrine situation. Of course, a dry cow has a very low requirement for energy, but the fetus grows and grows on, and especially during the last weeks of pregnancy, there is a rapid increase of fetus growth, almost doubles its size and its weight during the last 3 months of pregnancy. So it requires much more space on the one hand, it requires more energy, more nutrients, and more minerals. The bones of the fetus are also calcified, which means a mineral drain from the cow's metabolism and from the blood and from the bones. This growing fetus needs more space in the abdominal cavity, and the rumen is the one organ that has to suffer from this, so the possible maximum volume of the rumen is decreased, and this means that there is a reduction of feed intake for the cow. The cows in the late pregnancy phase and the beginning transition period will experience a nutrient and energy shortage situation. At the same time, there's the onset of milk production, where the cow has a small rumen, small capacity to eat enough. On the other hand, the metabolic activity is rapidly increasing very quickly. This means there are completely changing nutritional needs in the cow. It changes to the high milk production situation, high energy and high nutrient turnover. When we look at it in the graph, we see when the cow calves here in the middle of the transition period, the milk production begins, and this means that the energy demand is growing very quickly to a high level on the one hand, but the energy intake from the feed is not increasing in the same speed. So we see a gap between both, and this results in a reduction of body mass. So we have a body condition score that is going down until the end of the early lactation and is slowly increasing again. This means we have a negative energy balance in this phase here, where the cow has to use energy storage from the fat tissue to compensate for this lack of energy from the feed that is eaten day by day. And this changes somewhere around day 100, for example in this situation here with a 10,000 kilogram milk yield data, and we have a positive energy balance in the later lactation, where the cow can again store energy and nutrients in different tissues in the body. But when we look at this graph here, we see, of course, the negative energy balance situation. This has been extensively researched for many years now, but during the last years more and more focus has also been set on other nutrients that are also in a deficiency. So it's not only the energy aspect coming from the feed, but it's also the protein that is in a negative situation. So the cows start to take proteins from their connective tissue, from their functional tissue, from organs, and use it to produce milk. And there are storages for both of it, but when we look at other nutrients, the mineral situation beyond calcium, magnesium and phosphorus, when we look at trace minerals, there are quite low, small storage situations, low capacities to compensate. So these cows run into a negative mineral balance. They give lots of trace minerals into the milk, and they need it for their high metabolic turnover, a lot of oxidative metabolism. And we have a negative vitamin balance, because when we feed them with a TMR, which is the dominant feeding system, we normally use the same mineral feed for early and late lactating cows. So we normally do not differentiate between these cows that are in a negative balance situation and those who are in a positive energy or positive nutrient balance situation. Let's take a look at the consequences of these deficiencies. What we know about the transition period is that many diseases occur in this phase of the life of a cow. Some might even say most of the diseases occur in this time. Disease, what is it? To me, a definition of a disease is that it is a physical state that is reached after the fatigue of the compensatory mechanisms in the organism. So an animal tries to compensate for different stressors from the inside and the outside as long as possible, but at some point the situation is getting worse and worse and the disease begins. So the diseases that we see in the transition period are milk fever, ketosis and others, mainly metabolic problems, but we also see infectious diseases occurring in this time. And what we also see in general is a type of immune deficiency. So the cows really have a lower immune capability in this time, and they are very open for any infectious agent coming along attacking the cow. What are the lessons learned from this problematic situation, that we have a high requirement for nutrients in the cow on the one hand, and we have the problematic situation that we can't bring all these nutrients, all these dry matter into the cow's rumen at the same time. The basic concept, which has proven its effectiveness very well, is the controlled energy diet, which on the one hand should always maintain the feed intake as high as possible and always support the rumen stability. Rumen stability is the basis for a healthy cow every time, and we should never try to increase the energy content too much and to disturb the rumen microbiome. Another basic feeding concept which is very effective in preventing milk fever is the Dcad concept, which starts before calving. But these are basic concepts that every farm can more or less realize. But the research of the last years has shown that there are even better or some other options that we can also add on with the supplementation of, for example, amino acids of methionine and leucine, and it has been well described that they are able to increase the milk protein content, and also they can very well improve the fertility of the cow, but they can also have a positive effect on the downregulation of excessive inflammatory reactions, which is a severe problem in the transition cow. Glucogenic substances are well known to improve the energy metabolic situation because they can reduce the ketone bodies and prevent ketosis, which is the same with choline, that can also prevent ketone body formation, but it can also have a positive and supporting effect with methionine on inflammatory reactions, for example. And last but not least, antioxidants like selenium, vitamin E and beta-carotene are able to stabilize fertility, improve oocyte functions and the endocrine situation, but moreover they are able to reduce oxidative stress in the cow, which is a severe problem during the transition phase when the oxidative metabolism increases and there's lots of oxygen, reactive oxygen, causing several collateral damages in the tissues, and this can be downregulated and stopped by high antioxidant capacities in the cow. Let's take a look at the practical nutritional situation and the question, how can we bring all the nutrients into the cow where they can bring the effects we expect. We know that the TMR concept is a standard procedure in high-yielding herds. It works very well for rumen stability and the high energy concentrations that are needed for high productivity. And in larger herds we have several groups with different TMR mixtures, different compositions, so the feeding is mainly group specific and the cows are grouped by their milk yield, for example, or according to lactation days and milk. So it's never an individual feeding, it's more based on the group assignment of the cow. Also in the dry phase, the two-phase feeding of dry cows has proven benefits, works very well, but it's never an really individual feeding. We have an increased concentration of energy and micronutrients that we can put in this ration. Especially the micronutrients can be increased for dry cows in contrast to lactating cows, but it's always dependent that these cows have a high feed intake, that they eat as much as is calculated, and cows with a more problematic situation, with a stronger compression of the rumen, have a limited feed intake, leading to a deficiency in micronutrients, for example. And we know that this two-phase feeding with an increase in the second phase and the close-up group is not feasible for smaller herds. They don't have the space to group these dry cows. So where can we add these high quality premium supplements that we know that they are effective, they are quite cost intensive, and is it really worth putting them in that manner all over the group, all over the cows? And many of the cows don't really need them yet, or they don't need them anymore, or maybe their milk yield is much lower than in other cows, so we have a consumption that is higher without any effect. So the question is, what about the cost efficiency? What about the workload that it brings with it to mix all this into the rations, or to make different rations for different groups, and another group, another one? So at the end the compliance of the farmer will be very low. So why don't we change the idea of supplementation from this all over pouring concept to this highly individual supplementation, each cow by cow at the level that it needs with the amount that it requires according to milk yield and lactation stage day by day. This means when we supplement cow individually, we can support the period-specific needs of the cow directly. We can address high-yielding cows with a supply that goes longer into lactation, or high-risk cows that maybe are over-conditioned can already be supplemented earlier in the dry phase, for example, when we really focus on an individual supplementation way. When we increase the efficiency of the supplementation, to my mind, the outcome will be much better. We will have more healthy cows, but we will also have a higher cost efficiency, which is relevant for the farmer at the end of the day. And we have a reduction in workload if we are able to bring this into automation and let it not be done by hand as a manual work. And when we only apply the supplements to those cows who really have the high demand for it, and not give these high quality supplements, trace minerals and so on, to cows that don't really need it and won't digest it, we will also lower the environmental effects, the emissions of these substances. Or we can also use supplements that reduce the environmental effects of the dairy cow in general. So when we look at all this, to give a conclusion at the end, we know that the transition cow undergoes massive metabolic and endocrine adaptations. We know that the energy balance is very negative in the first days. This has been well described for many years now, but the recent research also proves that we have a high metabolic changes beyond the energy situation, because we know that there is a deficiency of protein, of trace minerals, of vitamins during the transition period, leading to a deficiency in the immune response. We have more oxidative stress, we have a impaired antioxidative system causing collateral damages in the tissues, in the organs, and impairing immune response, impairing milk yield and fertility for not only days but for weeks, sometimes for months, or even causing severe diseases in the animals. The idea is that specific supplementation, we know of many agents that they have a proven effect on animal health. This can support health or productivity or even fertility, so there are many products on the market that can help the cows during this phase beyond energy and protein demands. But how to bring it to the cow? I think automation is the answer. We need an automated cow individual application technique that ensures that these high quality products really get to those cows who need it during the time when they need it, and then we have an efficient system. This is my opinion, and I hope you agree with it. Thank you for your attention, and I'm open for your questions now. Thank you very much.
Okay, so thanks Ole for that nice presentation, that introduction. Okay, so we can move to the Q&A now. I have a couple of questions in the chat. And the first one is about, so you mentioned the definition of disease and a list of different diseases that happen frequently also in the transition period. And a question that came up is, how can subclinical signs of these diseases be monitored? It's maybe a difficult one to start with, but are there any promised biotechnologies, supplements, or additives that can address these?
Well, to start with the first question, thank you very much. Of course, there are possibilities to detect these subclinical deviations from the normal situation. We can take blood samples from the cows to monitor micronutrients. For example, we can also analyze vitamins in the blood serum and the blood plasma. And in some cases, it's even worth taking tissue samples from the liver or taking them at the slaughterhouse from some cows that have to go there anyway. And as long as they were not ill or suffering from metabolic diseases for a longer period, these data can also be used to monitor for subclinical disease and health problems. And also for oxidative or anti-oxidative system, you can have a look at some reactive products like the T-bars, and you can also look at inflammatory reactions, analyzing heptoglobin and other, well, very detailed agents that you can analyze in a laboratory.
Okay. And any promising new innovations also in that field that you know of?
Yeah, of course, but I think this is up to the next speakers. They are able to present some novel and well-established products and possibilities that can be used for this precision supplementation. Okay. So I don't want to,
Yeah, we'll see what comes up indeed.
Yeah.
Maybe a question of myself as well. You mentioned at a certain point that to go to this individualized feeding, the individual management of the dairy cow, we could base their feeding on the milk yield and the lactation stage that they're at. My question is, do you think that is sufficient to base it on those two parts, or do you expect also individual variability within a stage?
Yeah, of course, there is a variability, and when we look at the conventional group-specific feeding, even many farms don't even do that. They have one ration for the whole lactation. We know that cows' need for specific products increases towards the calving moment, and so it's also high during the first days of lactation, and so the time aspect is the most relevant one that we have to bear in mind, but especially the farmers can use other parameters to select cows that should get extra supplementation.
Okay, thanks. So I think we can move to the next presentation now, which is from Jesper Madsen and is on the composition of cost-effective supplements. So if you could start that presentation.
Good morning. My name is Jesper Madsen. I'm Business and Product Manager in Vilomix, Denmark. I have been working with vitamins, minerals, and additives for more than 20 years now. And today I do a presentation about composition of cost-effective supplements for transition cows and the optimization for precision supplementation. I will shortly give you an introduction to our company, Vilomix Group. Vilomix has 4 business units: vitamins and minerals, where I'm placed, veterinary medicine, farm supply, and genetics semen for swine. We are more than 500 employees in Vilomix Group, and we export our products to more than 20 countries. Vilomix is a part of the Danish Agro Group, and the Danish Agro Group mainly operates with the sales of feedstuffs, fertilizer, crop protection, seed, and energy, plus a purchase of crops from the farmers. The group also distributes a number of strong farm machinery brands and runs an extensive chain of hobby and leisure retail outlets. The Danish Agro Group has more than 5,000 employees and had a turnover of 4.4 billion euro in 2018. When Vilomix jumped into the project Pitstop Plus, we had a task, and that was to develop, produce, and deliver mineral feed that successfully operates in the Pitstop Plus system and furthermore supports the cow's health and production. The success of using Pitstop plus mineral feed. Well, when we started looking into this issue, we found out there was 3 important points about Pitstop plus mineral feed. That was flowability, meaning the functionality in the feeder. We wanted to be sure that the product were able to run out of the feeder. Palatability, the cows should continuously eat the product, so we needed to find out a way to be sure that they ate enough of the product every day. And after that, of course, the effect of the additives and the vitamins and minerals. So supply of the needed additives in the right amount and time of lactation. We have been testing different types of mineral feeds to control the flowability. The target was to have a high flowability of the mineral feeds for the Pitstop Plus system. We tested density, feed time, meaning how long was this powder mineral product its time to run out of the machinery, residual, meaning what was left, what was not able to run out, the angle of response, and the particle size. And our conclusion was that the angle of response should be less than 30 degrees and a free-flowing sharp particles should be used in the mineral feed for this to be sure that it was able to run out of the machine. How did we formulate the Pitstop Plus mineral feed? Well, the target was a high palatability. We have been using aroma, milled corn and wheat, dextrose, and salt. It was very important that the cows should like the taste of the Pitstop Plus mineral feed and eat the daily dosage day after day. We found out that by having the right composition of a sweet and salt mixture, that the cows continued to eat what they were supposed to. We also found that with other types of mineral feed, that the cows lost the interest in the product after a few days. The cows has great interest to eat the Pitstop Plus products, and you find a YouTube video that confirms this.
Jamen det jeg gerne ville med det her system, det var at komme til at tildele køerne nogle vitaminer og nogle mineraler i de første 100-120 dage for at optimere dem der. Fordi det er jo meget godt, at vi giver dem i fuldforet, men jeg tror, at de kunne godt bruge noget ekstra i den periode der. Der har vi så systemet her fra mikrofeeder, hvor vi kan tildele køerne de første 100-120 dage den ekstra mineraler og vitaminer ved hjælp af det øremærke, de i forvejen har. Og det ser ud til, at systemet det fungerer faktisk rigtig godt. Køerne er interesseret i at gå i kasserne, fordi de finder ud af, at det, der er i kassen, det er noget, der smager godt.
What's the point of using additives and supplements? And what is the limiting factor for optimal livestock production? In a farm, in a herd, there are a number of different things that is minimizing the production. The management could be limiting the health status, the physical surroundings and the stables, the genetics, and so on. And when we come down to feed and feeding, we know that the raw materials and the content of nutrients in the raw materials should be optimized. Also the feed management and the supplementation, meaning feed enough at the right time, and also the composition optimization, looking at protein and energy level, is very important to achieve an optimal production. Further down this line, we come down to minerals and vitamins and additives. And this is one of the points that we need to optimize to get the fully potential out of the herd. Feed intake in relation to the needs. The cow in the start of lactation is not able to eat enough compared to the needs. So in this period, it's very important to invest extra. This is possible by using the Pitstop Plus mineral feed. And on the other hand, when we come on the last part of lactation, the feed intake is higher than the needs, and in this period we can save costs on the additives. For a longer period, we have been testing our product Pitstop Plus Bromide Startlock. Pitstop Plus Bromide Startlac is a mineral feed supplement and supposed to be used in addition to the normal mineral feed that is fed through the TMR. I'll just shortly point out a few selected content of the Pitstop Bromide Startlac mineral feed. The product contained ronozyme, and ronozyme is an alpha amylase enzyme that breaks down starch from the feed and hereby increase rumen microbes activity. This increases the feed conversion and milk production increases. Furthermore, it's shown that this alpha amylase enzyme also increases the fiber digestion, so totally a better utilization of the feed. Our product also contained natural E-vitamin as a D-alpha-tocopherol source, and this is identical to nature. E-vitamin is an antioxidant and supports the immune function and reproduction. Finally, it also contains organic bound selenium as a selenium yeast. This is a highly bioavailable selenium source that counteracts oxidative stress in close cooperation with E-vitamin in the cells in the animal. We have now continued with an ongoing test on choline and methionine in the Pitstop Plus system. Choline and methionine are effective to reduce the risk of fatty liver and maximize milk and protein yield. We are now waiting for the result of this test. To sum up, by using the Pitstop Plus system, it's possible to use all different types of additives. This gives a precise addition of vitamins, microelements, and additives in relation to the health and feeding situation in the farm. It gives an exact supply of additives in the mobilization phase, and we are able to feed not too much or not too long. This is cost saving, and we are able to use the right additives for the right animals at the right time, and we are not spending money on additives for the whole herd. Thank you all for listening. Very soon I'm ready to answer your questions. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Jesper. Can you come on stage with your video and microphone? No, thanks for your presentation. I have not yet received any questions in the chat, so I hope that people are still typing at the moment. But a question from myself. You mentioned at the end that indeed there are possible cost savings. Do you have any idea on how big these would be?
Sorry?
The cost savings.
Yeah.
How much, can you put a value on it?
It depends very much on the chosen additives that we're using in the start lactation, of course. Typically, we would use extra cost somewhere between, let's say, 3 cents up to, I would say, half a euro cent in the start period. It's very much depending on the chosen additives for this start lactation period. Yeah, and what is also mentioned in the presentation by Ole is that it's very important to use the right additives for the right time of the period. And typically in the average herd in Denmark or in Europe is that if we feed a TMR, we feed the same for all animals. And by that, unfortunately, it's too expensive to use special additives if we feed them to all animals. So for a longer period now, we have not had the possibilities to use specific additives.
Yeah, indeed. I see there's a question in the chat from Katrina Feil that she says we should talk about optimizing income over feed costs, not lowering feed costs per se, as that is not relevant for the economical benefit. So I don't know if you have, if you can say something more about that. So of course it's about maximizing income.
Yeah. For the test until now, we have mainly had the focus on the functionality and having a success with the products to be sure that what we feed or what we expect to feed is also fed. And that has given us, let's say, small challenges. Mm-hmm. Of course, by spending more time, we could start going into the next discussion about this, let's say, cost and efficiency.
Yeah. So now it was mostly also about, like you mentioned, to put the ration at on point to figure out if the cows would like it and if it is being eaten like it should be.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Some of these additives, they are not very nice in taste or smell, so we have to cover them and to be sure that the cows eat them.
Yeah, and now that is successful, I believe. Yeah. Okay. I see at the same time there are lots of questions coming in, so I'll pick out some still. You have mentioned choline. Are you using it in the rumen protected form? And have you ever thought about other B vitamins protected to be used?
We use rumen protected choline, yes. We have considered and we are using protected niacin in other situations also, not in this test, but let's say in our normal business. And yeah, that's the two protected versions we run at the moment when we talk about vitamins.
Okay. I'm checking, there are lots more questions coming in, so I have to pick one. And I will pick, do you have any idea of the environmental impact? You mentioned, it was mentioned also in Ole's presentation, we can reduce environmental impact. So if we're feeding the cows only what is needed, so nothing is left in the manure, are there any figures about that?
No, not from my side. But of course, this Pitstop Plus system will be relevant also when we look into the future of using methane inhibitors and so on. So there will be possibilities and needs of this. Yeah.
Lots of potential then. Yeah. Okay, maybe you can check some of the other questions in the chat and answer them in the chat. And then I think we will now go to the, so thanks for the Q&A. And we will now go to a video that actually shows the use case in its entirety and also bring up some end users that have used the Pitstop system during the last years.
We developed the Pitstop Plus feeders for automated precision supplementation because there is a big challenge in feeding dairy cows. In the transition period, they are eating too little, and in the rest of lactation too much. And it's problematic if they are getting too little minerals, especially microminerals, in the beginning of the lactation. Our Pitstop Plus system can handle this and balance the minerals and vitamins correct towards the cow's needs. Our system is technically very simple. It consists of some feeders which the farmer can easily mount in the stable with 4 bolts. Then we have a master unit which is a center for communication, and the cows are identified in the system with the electronic ear tags. Electronic ear tags are very cheap compared to transponders, and they are compulsory used in some countries.
The Pitstop feeder helps me to give the dry cow a better intake easily, gives me less work and a better lactation afterwards.
Thanks to the IOF 2020 project, we got the opportunity to make tests with our technology. We started with a minimum viable product, and we have developed a lot on the technicalities, the software behind. Almost all parts of our feeders and our systems have been exchanged during this and improved during this test period. The results from our test beds actually show that we were right, and we can give cows a better production, health, reproduction, and get a better milk quality by giving them the minerals and vitamins they need in the transition period. iOS 2020 also helped us to cooperate with other use cases, and we have got a lot of inspiration from being part of this ecosystem, not least from having a lot of cooperation with use case 2.3 about the silent herdsman system, which we are using in 2 of our test beds.
Okay, so this was a really short introduction video, and now I would like to ask on stage Gerrit Arendse, who is here normally, and Indulis Ieviņš, and maybe also Henning yourself, so that we can have just a short discussion. Hi, Gerrit. Waiting for the others. Okay.
Yeah.
Indulis, you had some things you wanted to say during the program, so I'll let you go first.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I'm Indulis Ieviņš, and I'm a general manager of university-owned training and research farm Vecauce. We are mixed farm. It's a mixed production farm, and we are working on 1,800 hectares of arable land, and main division is milk production. We are milking about 500 cows, plus dry cows, plus calves, plus heifers. Totally, we have around 1,300 heads. Then our milk yield has reached over 7,000 tons per year. Its average milk yield is about 12,100 kilos per cow, and our top yielding cow gave for some more than 2 weeks period over 82 liters per day. Yeah, and cows in lactation from 0 till 100 days, over there our average milk yield is from 50 in worst case, but most closer to 55 liters per day. Yeah, and well, actually after we were starting with these additional microfeeders and other things, we don't have any, or almost, okay, maybe cases, but actually we don't have any ketosis and acetosis on our cases in our farm. Yeah, and yeah, we were asked to join Pitstop project. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like test place, and also like university farm. And yeah, this was rough weather conditions, actually rough conditions, and really good test point for these feeders. Yeah, where we found out some problems in materials, in problems with cold weather, additional wet conditions and such things, because we have open type farm. Uh-huh. And yeah, these things have been improved. Yeah, right now things are better. Yeah, we were working also together with Vilomix as they were producing these mixtures. Uh-huh. And right now they had made another mixture for us, uh-huh. A little bit cheaper one, yeah, but which also fits our needs. And also, this was like testing place also for Vilomix to understand type of these mixtures, yeah, that to get it a little bit coarser, bigger particles, yeah, less less dust, yeah, and yeah, with these microfeeders, it's actually main thing is to find right place to put them. Yeah, that it would be easy to access to cows. And next big problem is how to make safe any wiring which is coming to the pit stopper, to the feeder, because cows are finding different ways how to damage it. Therefore, it's really rule of thumb, yeah, just fixed or how hide any incoming wires that they cannot get to them, yeah. And yeah, we changed from this normal, let's say, number tags. We changed to electronic tags. And I wouldn't say that it was expensive step, yeah, because normal number tags cost 3.1 euro per cow. Yeah, electronic tags just 5 euros per cow.
Yeah.
And then this is quite good thing that by using these electronic tags, you can add also other things, electronic things or testing things in your farm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and no, I wouldn't say that is big investment. Yeah, we found with one neighbor farm, which also was like testing farm. They were trying to go together with this bigger tags on legs, yeah, or this that some of these expensive things they don't work so good, yeah. And here with air tags, yeah, this feeder works only when cow comes to test. Is there some feed in? Yeah, and this is thing what we will continue further on. Yeah, and this is way how we can be sure to know how much each cow gets of this expensive supplement. Yeah, because it's about daily dose. It's depending on these mixtures. Yeah, from 6 to 12 cents per day. Yeah, and then we can be sure that they will not get too big doses. Yeah, if, for example, if this mixture would be used in TMR, yeah, they cannot get it separated, yeah, from feed, and therefore, no, actually we are getting much better targeting to each cow.
Okay. So maybe Gerrit, what were your experiences with the system? Did you experience the same, like that the position of the feeder is very important, and or did you experience other things?
Yes, we had positioned them with the computer feeders, and that works very good. You have a good cow traffic. And cow traffic is important, that the cows are coming. They have to eat voluntarily, and that hangs on here taste and scent of the product what you use. In our case, we changed the recipe a lot of times. We made aroma to the product, and we tried to make the flowability better. And then you have better results, because as Jesper says, they have to come when they have one day of nothing, the next day they don't come anymore. And that's very, very important, that you use aroma, taste, and the position of the feeder. That's right.
Yeah. Did they learn it fast? to go at
Yes,
the
yes,
microfeeder?
yes. They learn very fast.
Okay.
They learn very fast. But it depends on what I say. It has to have a good scent and a good taste.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and much bigger much more they're coming when they see when you come at least once a week to add this mixture, that really there's smell all around, and if they see that added, they have bigger interest.
Yeah.
Really, they are boring, and they're just coming test each after.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah. Okay, before we go to the next presentation for time, maybe Henning, I have some questions that I collected for you generally on the system. I saw earlier someone ask, what about other housing systems also? And what about when the cows are grazing maybe, or how do you see the solution then?
So the Pitstop Plus has some advantages, but also some limitations. And as we hear here, it's very important to place it where there is high cow traffic, and it's developed in order to, let's say, handle a problem, or let's say a challenge with TMR feeding. And TMR feeding is generally not used during grazing. So it is a system you use when you have cows on stable 365 days a year. How to say, there's nothing hindering that instead of this blue box you have seen, that we could make another configuration of Pitstop precision supplementation, so you can use it also in the milking parlor, and I think that will be one of the next steps. And in that case, nothing hinders to use the system also during grazing periods.
Okay.
If you will allow, I will shortly comment also some issues that were raised.
Yep,
in the
sure.
As I would like to say that Indulis and Gerrit and other test farms, they have been very patient, and we have had many technical problems and had to exchange, for instance, cables of the feeders, like Indulis mentioned. I think we changed them 2 times, and we found out that it's needed to install them in another way, and to have strong qualities and so on. So test farms have been really patient with us. And also, I will also mention about the other Latvian farm that we especially due to COVID-19, we could not really follow up on this, that they used some transponders that is based on the same ISO system for identification as the electronic ear tags, but we are definitely sure that we have a solution for this farm and other farms who is using such transponders. And I would also like to mention that also on Gerrit's farm, that they, as like for Vecauce, that they switched to give female calves an electronic ear tag. For Gerrit, it has concretely meant that he can use the same system for his milk drinking system for his small calves, instead of buying much more expensive transponders for the small calves. So this a concrete example of what Indulis also mentioned, that then you can use it for other systems as well.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah, sorry. So thanks for let me comment on this here.
No, that's a good point. And indeed, like you say, I mean, the whole purpose of the project and the use case was to be able to test at real life facilities and to improve at the same time. So it's normal that there were challenges, and that a lot of lessons were learned during the testing. So that's really the goal of the project has been reached then as well. to have this real testing on real farms and to improve it like that. Yeah. So
can I also say that
yeah.
we made the program for this webinar so that it does not include very much, let's say, technical details about how the system is working.
Yeah.
I will write in the chat a link to a web page where you can study more about this Pitstop Plus system for precision supplementation.
Yeah, that's great, because I see indeed some questions on the technicalities coming up in the chat. So thanks, Henning, Indulis, and Gerrit for your input. And we will now move on to the next presentation from Angela Schröder on formulating ruminant health.
Hello, my name is Angela Schröder. I am the Technical Service Manager Ruminants in Northwestern Europe at Chemin. Today I'm talking about formulating ruminant health and efficiency and the special role of rumen-protected amino acids and choline. Who is Chemin? Chemin has more than 50 manufacturing facilities worldwide. We are operating in more than 90 countries and we have customers in more than 120 countries. Through exacting science and technology, Chemin offers more than 500 specialty ingredients to customers worldwide. Chemin serves different industries, such as aquaculture, pet food and rendering technologies, human nutritional health, food technologies, crop technologies, textile auxiliaries, and animal nutrition and health. Within the animal nutrition and health pillar, we are specialists in gut health, lipid nutrition and quality, mineral nutrition, carotenoids, enzyme technology, mycotoxin control, milling efficiency, feed safety, and ruminant essentialities. With our ruminant essentialities, we are inspiring amino acid nutrition with our products Casent, Lysigem, and Lysipearl. And we are formulating ruminant health with our products Coligem, Colipearl, NutriCap, Chemtrace, and Toxin. Today's seminar is related to the hashtags dairy production, profitability, animal welfare, climate impact, environmental load, and resource economy. How do we get there? We need to pay attention to feed efficiency. And which are the factors influencing the feed efficiency? Improving productivity and maximizing component yields has a positive impact, because energetic and metabolic protein costs per kilogram of fat-corrected milk decreased by 19% when milk yield increased from 6,000 to 10,000 kilos per year. Increasing lactation numbers is another crucial parameter. The efficiency increases with the increasing number of lactations per cow. Enhancing reproduction is important because it reduces the proportion of heifers that must be retained and it increases the number of lactations per cow. If we want to reduce methane, CO2 footprint and ammonia emissions, we also need to take into account nutrient costs for maintenance and other functions for the period from rearing the calf to first lactation. Amino acid balancing is the important step in dairy nutrition and has a huge impact on feed efficiency and farm profitability. As monogastrics, the cow needs amino acids, not crude protein. Amino acids are nutrients, not just another powder on top. In this table, the prediction quality is related to different parameters we are using in dairy formulations, such as crude protein, metabolizable methionine, and metabolizable lysine. As you see, the very bad prediction with crude protein, the R-square is only 0.29. With MP, 0.65, with MP plus methionine, 0.76. And the best R-square with MP plus methionine plus lysine with 0.9 for milk production and even better with 0.92 for milk protein. If we want to achieve a good accuracy and precision between our formulation and milk production, we have to work with both first limiting amino acids. Here we evaluated, according CNCPS 6.55, different feedstuffs for their contribution to methionine and lysine supply. We have to realize that whatever the level of milk production is, there is a deficiency of the nutrients methionine and lysine in gram per cow per day. If we look closer, for example, into different grass silage qualities, we also find this deficiency when methionine and lysine are expressed as % of MP and gram per megacalorie ME. So, what are the benefits of amino acid nutrition? Lysine and methionine have a clear positive impact on milk production and milk component production. There are benefits for the transition period, liver function, inflammation, oxidative stress, immunometabolic status. And amino acids also play a role on gene expression, reproduction and pathways in the liver of the newborn calf. What about the impact of amino acids on the life cycle assessment? We can lower nitrogen intake and thereby also lowering nitrogen excretion and get a better nitrogen efficiency. We can lower phosphorus excretion because we are less dependent on feed ingredients. With a better feed efficiency and better milk efficiency, we can also decrease methane excretion and CO2 footprint. How to move on with amino acid formulation if you want to formulate your rations for methionine and lysine? How to select the best product? It has long been understood that producing products with both excellent protection from ruminant degradation and high intestinal release is not easy. Current products are far from being created equally. It has also been known that to produce a viable rumen-protected amino acid supplement, product stability must be maintained when mixing with other feeds, both in the feed mill and on the farm. However, a consideration that seems to have been missed by some suppliers. Users should not use products that have not undergone rigorous, documented and transparent evaluation of how much of the contained amino acids get absorbed. It's apparent that achieving high quality and consistent products takes extraordinary refinements of encapsulation or protection technology. For the matrix validation of our rumen-protected amino acids, Chemin follows a 5-step referenceable matrix validation process. Only one method is not enough. We are using in vitro methods to gain information on particle size and specific gravity, in situ to get information on the kinetics, in vivo from independent university we get information on true plasma-free amino acid dose response. We are stressing our products to real conditions, and we are estimating the relative bioavailability of our rumen-protected amino acids by measuring the changes in milk composition. Really important, that's not only one method, but it's a 5-step process to describe and validate the matrix values. With reliable data on the products, with our field experience and technical support, you can gain the described benefits in terms of production, reproduction, and also environmental impacts. We are here to support you in the next steps in amino acid nutrition. Whatever system you are using, if it's CNCPS, NO4, NXP, DVE, or feed into milk, we are here to support you. Let's have a closer look into the transition phase. Opportunities come along with challenges if not managed well. As mentioned earlier, the cow benefits already in the transition phase from rumen-protected amino acids. But also rumen-protected choline plays a major role in transitioning. How? Dry matter intake and body fat mobilization are important for the health of the cow and overall efficiency of the farm. The average cow commonly peaks in milk production at 4 to 6 weeks into lactation, but her dry matter intake lags behind. This situation puts the cow in a negative energy balance for several months in early lactation. The cow uses available body fat reserves to cover this shortfall, and this is increasing NEFAs so that the cow is phased to subclinical ketosis. How relevant is this with commercial dairy farming? In Europe, we have an incidence of subclinical ketosis of 11 to 36%. And these cows with subclinical ketosis had 1.5 times greater chances of developing metritis, 9.5 times greater chances of getting clinical ketosis, and 5 times greater chances of displaced abomasum, which of course has a major impact on the profitability of the farm. And it's well known that the peak milk yield is directly related to total lactation with mature cows. For each additional kilogram of milk at peak, there will be approximately 200 kilograms more milk over the whole lactation. What is the solution for better transitioning? We have to improve dry matter intake and fat utilization in the liver. Exportation and utilization of body fat plays a major role for health and production of the cow. In the beginning of lactation, every cow is mobilizing the fat, and the fatty acids will be oxidized with the support of lysine and methionine in the mitochondria to ATP as energy source. Another pathway is the oxidation directly to ketone bodies, which can be utilized as well as energy source, but in the worst case, the cow gets a ketosis. Another pathway is to reacidify the NEFAs to triglycerides. And these triglycerides need to be transported out of the liver through the lipoproteins, the so-called VLDL. To produce the VLDL, the cow needs choline and methionine. If there is an excess of fat, a lack of methionine, lysine, and choline, the cow cannot produce these VLDL, and the NEFAs will be oxidized again through ketone bodies. The cow gets ketosis, or in the worst case, fatty liver. So we can help the cow if we supply the right amount of lysine, methionine, and choline. Recently, 2 meta-analyses on choline nutrition have been published. Due to the lack of time, I will present only the results of Ashad and colleagues. They collected data from 1984 to 2018. In total, 21 experiments, up to 66 treatments, more than 1,300 cows. The cows were fed on average 22 days before calving and 58 days after calving. This meta-analysis has shown that choline improved dry matter intake significantly, 0.2 kilos before calving and 0.5 kilos after calving. Choline improved as well performance, energy-corrected milk by 1.7 kilos, and the feed efficiency was as well improved. They also stated improved blood glucose levels and fat utilization parameters such as beta-hydroxybutyrate and fatty acids. So in conclusion, one can say that rumen-protected choline is a solution for better transitioning. The return on investment ranges from 4 to 8 to 1, and it's a result of 1.7 kilo extra milk yield and its legacy effect. The legacy effect for 100 to 200 days is about 170 to 340 kilos extra milk. The reduction of metabolic disorders has an additional very positive impact on the return on investment. Coligem, a rumen-protected choline chloride, is a unique invention of Chemin. With 60%, it's the highest concentrated source of encapsulated choline chloride available. Chemin's scientists have invested more than half a decade to design a unique C3 model to achieve the best results from supplementing choline in the next generation of encapsulated choline with our product Coligem. The uniqueness of this C3 model lies in the choline core, in the choline concentration, and in the scientific coating. Before you apply any rumen-protected product, make sure you get qualified information. The variation in bioavailability of rumen-protected choline chlorides in the market is huge. Wrap up. Meeting lysine and methionine requirements provides productive and health benefits for the animal. Rumen-protected amino acid supplementation has a positive impact on farm and industry efficiency with benefits for the environment. And ColiGem, where cow meets health, and the Chem and Amino Acid program are proven tools to make dairy farming profitable with clear commitment to sustainability. Due to the limited time, I could provide only a few insights into amino acid and choline nutrition. Please feel free to reach out for further information and for support. Whatever system you are using, CNCPS, NORFO, DVE, NXP, we are here to assist you. Thank you very much for your attention.
Okay, thank you, Angela, for that presentation. If you could come online, yes. Hi. So the first question, Angela, is from Ole. What is the optimal dosage per day for choline that you would recommend? Oh, Angela, you're muted.
I mean, there's always a range for the recommendation. Current trials show that there is a need of 8 to up to 15 grams of choline for the transition cow. On average, we are feeding 10. But there are trials really showing also additional response on higher amounts, but this is not for practical application.
Okay, yeah. You mentioned a really transparent and elaborate validation scheme that you apply. Yeah. Where can people find the results of all of those steps in the validation that you mentioned?
Some of them are published in the Journal of Dairy Science. They are some of them just submitted because our Casein products are quite young. So we did university trials, but not yet all yet published in the Dairy of Science, but they are submitted.
Yeah, so it's mostly scientific.
I can share what, yes, and this is our really our we really have this. We see the need that there needs to be scientific data beyond. It's not a farm trial is confirming the scientific science you did before, but you need to have science behind. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. I don't see any more questions at the moment. I guess they might pop up and then you can reply to them in the chat. But I would like to thank you very much for your interesting presentation. Yep.
Thank you.
So our next speaker is Christer Olsen, who will present a novel feed ingredient for methane reduction.
Hello everybody, my name is Christer Olsen. I work as a business development manager for Bovars at the DSM. Today I'm going to talk about our feed ingredient Bovars, or also known by its active ingredient as 3-P. And I will talk about its effect on methane reduction in dairy cows. Bovars is a combination of bovine and air. Bovine stands for cattle. The journey of Bovars started more than 50 years ago. Scientists have been interested in methane production in ruminants because of the energy losses. They have used various interventions such as diet, lipids, plant extracts, essential oils, breeding programs, vaccination programs. But none of these interventions have resulted in significantly high methane reductions. In 2008, DSM started a Clean Cow project as a consequence of climatic change. Two members of the team, Mike Kinderman and Stefan Deval, were assigned with a difficult task of making a product that could significantly reduce methane. They worked quickly, and already on the 10th of April in 2010, there was a product synthesized now known as Bovars for the first time. And already a year later, we had the first results from a sheep trial. And later that year, November 2011, we had results from the dairy cow trial conducted at Reading University in England. Since the journey started, DSM has conducted 43 animal trials, of which 30 on dairy cows. In August 2019, DSM submitted the dossier for market authorization to the EU, and approval is expected in the second half of 2021. After testing all major feed additives with methane-reducing effects, the University of California at Davis recommended Bovars in December 2020 as the only Category 1 product for methane mitigation. Bovars consists of two natural building blocks, a mineral saltpeter containing nitrate and an alcohol from corn called 1,3-propanediol. When combining these two building blocks, we get 3-NOP or 3-nitroxypropanol. 3-NOP targets one specific enzyme in the biological pathway of methane generation in the archaea. By blocking this unique enzyme, it inhibits methane formation. When 3-NOP acts, it gets cleaved into two natural compounds by its own mode of action. After cleaving, one of these fragments, which is a nitrite here, acts a second time, thereby creating a better than expected result. The molecular details of the mode of action also provide clear explanation why adaptation and development of resistance in the animal are very unlikely. The effect of 3-NOP is fully reversible in the animal. Once stopped feeding, methane production goes back to the original level. 3-NOP doesn't kill the microorganisms that are producing methane, it simply minimizes their activity. Furthermore, 3-NOP doesn't modify the rumen ecosystem. There are a few products that have been as extensively tested as Bovars. Bovars has been tested in 43 animal trials, of which 30 were dairy trials. Trials have been conducted in 13 countries and results published in 38 peer-reviewed publications. 2,000 tons of carbon dioxide equivalents were saved in these trials, and this corresponds to yearly emissions from about 2,000 cows. The range in methane reduction from 41 to 82% was not related to geographical differences, but rather to trial setup, where different doses of 3-NOP were used, different feed types, different animal types, and different production level of the animals. The current commitment to reduce carbon footprint is tremendous. Only 10 years ago, there were very few countries or companies that could be placed on this map. Carbon footprint is a natural part of many brand names, including the large dairy companies. And some of these brand names are listed here. Bovars is also part of this commitment to reduce carbon footprint. Bovars is part of the gold standard for carbon credit generation. Trials with Bovars have also been conducted with the aim of creating local carbon calculators. Furthermore, methane emissions in Bovars trials have also been used to update the national inventory on greenhouse gas emissions. There are several methods available to measure methane reduction in dairy cows, but relatively few of these methods can determine methane production reliably and accurately. Because of its reliability and accuracy, the green feed system has been used in most of the DSM trials with Bovars. It's almost like a normal feeding station that allows for many measurements without disturbing the animal. The cow is identified by a tag reader as it enters a feeding station enclosed by a hood. The cow emits gases when she's eating, and the concentration of these gases is measured by the gas sensors. And these sensors could be, for example, for methane, carbon dioxide, and hydrogen. The airflow is also determined by the airflow meter, and the combination of the gas concentration and the airflow is then used to calculate the gas production. The gas production could be determined in gram per cow and day, for example. The cow should visit the station for 2 to 3 minutes per visit to allow for good measurement. And she should visit the station approximately 25 times during a weekly period. In this slide, the green feed measurements are shown, and each dot represents one visit to the green feed station in the graph. The trial was conducted at Penn State University in the United States. 3-NOP was supplemented at 60 milligram per kilogram of dry matter, or 1.6 gram per cow and day, and was applied in a mineral feed mixed into a total mixed ration. 3-NOP resulted in a 25% reduction in methane emissions in grams per day, and all data points were collected for 15 weeks and then subsequently plotted over a 24-hour period. If enough data points are plotted, which they were in this particular trial, the daily patterns of methane emissions can be observed. In this particular trial, the feed was fed right after milking, and immediately you can see a difference in methane production. The blue line here represented by 3-NO-P was always at a lower production level compared with the untreated cows, which emitted more methane. The differences were larger when the cows were eating, and this is because when they digest the feed, carbon dioxide and hydrogen are produced, and carbon dioxide and hydrogen are then used by the archaea to produce methane. During periods when less feed is digested, there's also less food for the archaea to produce methane. The recommended dose of 3-NO-P ranges from 60 to 100 milligram per kilogram of dry matter for dairy cows. This corresponds to about 1.5 to 2.5 grams of 3-NO-P per cow a day. The dose rate, diet, and application route impacts the methane reduction of Bovaer when it's applied on a daily basis. Data from 14 different dairy trials with 26 doses of Bovaer showed significant reductions of methane. In the figure, we have divided the dosage rates into 3 different groups. We have a low dosage group with less than or equal to 60 milligram of 3-NO-P per kilogram of dry matter, and there we had an average reduction of methane of 27%. In the middle dosage group of 60 to 80 milligram of 3-NO-P per kilogram of dry matter, we had an average methane reduction of 34%. In the highest dose group of more than 80 milligram per kilogram of dry matter, we had an average reduction of 44% methane. Within the groups, you can see that there is some variation of methane reduction, and for most parts this can be explained due to the trial setup, where the dose rate, diet, and application route of Bovaer were different. We also have a figure here showing the linear relationship between the 3-NO-P intake in grams per cow a day, where we have a range from 1 to 2.5 grams, and the carbon dioxide equivalent saved in tons per cow a year. When we varied the 3-NO-P intake from 1 to 2.5 grams, we had a saving ranging from 1 ton per cow a year to about 2 tons per cow a year. Feeding one cow of 1.5 gram of 3-NO-P per day will save approximately 1.3 tons of carbon dioxide equivalents per year. We have conducted the dairy trials primarily based on the methane reduction when using Bovaer. However, we have also looked at production results, and we're happy to say that there have not been any significant effects on energy-corrected milk or dry matter intake as a result of the different interventions of Bovaer. Bovaer is globally recognized for its ability to reduce methane emissions. If Bovaer is used for all the 1.7 million cows in California, a 38% reduction in methane emissions can be achieved. This level of methane reduction translates into 2.33 billion kilograms of carbon dioxide equivalent saved, or 1,350 kilograms of carbon dioxide equivalents per cow a year. The greenhouse gas footprint for dairy could be reduced by 12%, or a total reduction of greenhouse gas emissions by 0.5% in California. Furthermore, researchers at the University of California and Davis assessed all feed additives with methane inhibiting claims. Only Bovaer received the recommendation for having the highest potential to reduce methane emissions. I thank you for your attention and welcome questions.
Okay, thank you, Christer. If you could come on stage with your camera and microphone, we have a couple of questions in the chat. Yes, hi. So first of all, what about the methane output if the manure would be used later on for biogas production? Can you comment on that?
Yes. So there's very little effect on the manure, on the methane production. This has been tested in a few trials. And this is simply because Bovaer is used in the rumen and there's no spillover to the manure.
Okay. Okay, thanks. Then another question was, what would be the range of the implied cost of greenhouse gas abatement in euros per ton CO2 equivalent resulting from the use of Bovar? Do you have any idea?
We haven't determined the price of the product yet, but okay. So there are no established prices either on the market. I mean, we have the carbon credit market, and the prices have been quite variable for methane or carbon dioxide equivalents. I believe that the cost of a ton of carbon dioxide equivalent is around 40 euros at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's possible. Okay, thanks. It will be interesting to see then what the price setting will be. Another question from Katrina was which diets were fed in these trials, as this could influence the methane production as well. And specifically, she asks how many NDF and NFC.
Yeah, I don't have all the details in my head here, but the product has been tested under a whole range of conditions. The NDF concentrations of the diets have been somewhere in the 20s, mid to high 20s, and then up to more than 40%. The NFC, I don't have the values in my head there, but there have been wide ranges of diets with 100% grass, with a lot of corn in the diets. And yes, there have been differences in the methane production based on these different diets. So this is something that we are modeling, and there are also publications. I can send you that some of the publications that have come out. There's a meta-analysis, for example, from Wageningen University that can be used to look at some of these diet differences.
Yeah, and probably within the trials, you always use as baseline the cows on the same diet. So the effects, I mean, you present percentage of reductions compared to cows on the same diet, probably. So
the effects of Bovars have always been in relation to untreated controls. Yeah. So without Bovars, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Then there's some more short questions. I'll maybe take the last one. How could we use it in practice? Should it be mixed to the TMR?
So yes. So the application route to the mouth of the cow right now is through a mineral feed. This is how we have applied Bovars in our trials. So we mix Bovars into mineral feed, and then often the mineral feed is used in a TMR. And the TMR is, I would say, the best route to apply the product, because it's important that the product is applied evenly in the feed, because most of the effect is when the cow is eating. So it's important that it's evenly distributed in the feed. And since it's such a small amount of product applied, it's even more important that you have an even and good mixing in the feed.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe one last one, because I find it really interesting. Did you see a cow individual impact on methane emitted during the tests of Bovars?
Yes, I mean, there are individual cow effects, and this is something that we're exploring even further. I mean, how will this impact on the climate, for example? And there are also, of course, I mean, this is outside of our work, but there are university people looking at genetic effects of the cows, how they can be manipulated and so on to affect the methane emissions.
Okay, yeah. Okay, thanks a lot for your presentation and for these answers. We will move now to our next talk about health-related results of the practical testing of the precision supplementation from Rimantas Stakauskas.
Dear participants of the webinar, let me introduce some findings and some results from our project. My name is Rimantas Stakauskas, and I am the head of Animal Research Center at Lithuanian Veterinary Academy. Let me introduce very interesting preliminary results of our project in one big Lithuanian dairy farm. Veterinarians of dairy farms know very well that there are visible and invisible diseases and symptoms, especially if we talk about high productivity milk cows. Most farmers see only clinical cases of visible diseases when symptoms are clearly seen. But all veterinarians know that most of diseases start or persist in invisible form. Subclinical diseases can be even more costly than clinical diseases because they are hidden may be not diagnosed for a long period of time, cause reduced productivity and reduced milk quality for a long time, and if unrecognized and not treated in time, they develop into very costly clinical cases. An organism of the cow, like any other live organism, is one complex body where subclinical diseases are interrelated, and their further development towards clinical diseases or towards healing very much depends on the immune status of the cow. As you can see on the picture, high productivity cow diseases can be like an iceberg, where you see just the top. So we, veterinarians, must always keep this in mind, especially when working with high productivity milk cows. On this slide, you can see the correlation between balanced feeding, which causes optimal immune status, thus good immune reactivity, which leads to reduced risk of all diseases. And of course, having higher animal welfare, we can get higher quality products, milk in our case. There is a number of methods and tests for blood sample testing in order to determine the status of health or to diagnose the disease. But I must tell that blood represents blood and not always other organs of the body. So some deficiencies of minerals may not be possible to diagnose from blood samples. As clinical pathologists from the University of Guelph described, for many of the trace elements, the blood is just the transport pool, and the liver is the real storage pool. Direct measurement of trace minerals in blood and tissue is subject to some limitations in evaluating nutritional status, because for some there is no recognizable storage pool, and for others the transport and functional pools overlap. For instance, all veterinarians and farmers know that by touching and pressing the bone of the cow tail, you can judge if this cow has calcium deficiency, but this deficiency might not be reflected in the blood calcium concentration. So we did our experimental work last year in a big farm which has 1,200 milking cows. 6 Pitstop feeders were installed in one herd, and cows were randomly divided into 2 groups. Test group cows received electronic air tags, thus were able to receive minerals during first 100 days of lactation, while remaining cows served as control cows for data comparison. All cows received the same TMR. Test cows had the possibility, on their own wish, to go for a pit stop and get additional minerals and vitamin concentrated mixture. I will present the most interesting findings, what effect additional minerals and vitamins had for health parameters. On the right side, you can see the list of diseases which were registered in the farm during the test period. At the bottom, you can see highlighted in bold and underlined parameter, which is not a disease, but nicely represents the health status of cows. I must also mention that we divided all test cows into 2 groups, cows after first lactation and all older cows. We all know that after first calving, a cow has enough depot of minerals and vitamins for the first lactation, but all older cows may have different status, and not always the body is fully restored after previous lactations. So these were the reasons to see the difference between these 2 groups of test cows. First of all, I want to show that in the test farm we have not observed significant influence of additional mineral feedings on the incidence of acidosis, fever, ketosis, general metabolic disorders, or abomasal displacement. But I must emphasize that these findings come from one big test farm in Lithuania. Results in other farms using different TMR composition or different mineral mixtures can be different. There were very interesting findings what effect of minerals we had on endometritis incidence. And we got a very nice and clear reduction in both groups, from 13 to 14%. At the first sight, we got a strange result regarding rumen anatomy. It seems that additional minerals caused digestion problems, but this could be either due to increased appetite or any other reasons which are not clear. Calculations have not been done, but it would be interesting to see the correlation of this parameter with the productivity. We are still searching for the explanation of this result. Even more interesting results, we see how additional minerals affect the incidence of total mastitis in the farm. It was reduced by 21% in older cows, but increased by 17% in younger cows. We had some discussions with my colleagues at the Veterinary Academy, and we came to the conclusion that minerals improved the immune status of older cows, restored mineral depots, and thus older cows were more resistant to infections and other inflammation in general. However, additional minerals could also increase the productivity of first lactation cows, which other is not yet so well prepared for higher production. If I could use such an expression, the other got too much stimulated for more and more production of milk. But this is our theoretical discussions, which of course could be studied in more details. However, so good positive results in older cows were really surprising for us. Milk fever usually represents how well calcium and phosphorus are balanced in TMR in the farm. However, we got a positive effect for older cows, and there was no effect on first lactation cows. At least, I have never heard any first lactation cow which had a milk fever. A similar positive effect of minerals we got in reduction of retention of placenta. Percentage is not high, but having in mind what consequences this problem might have for the cow, it is important too. And summarizing all disease findings in this farm, we could see that by precise and individual supplementation of minerals to high productivity cows, the general incidence of all diseases was reduced by 13%. If a farmer calculates all his expenses for treatment of his animals per year and reduce these costs by 13%, then it is not so difficult to calculate how much money could be saved. And the most surprising, I would even say shocking effect of we got in the insemination success. I must tell you, when I asked my colleague in the farm to collect number of inseminations, he could not believe his eyes. A big number of older cows from the test group were inseminated only once and with confirmed pregnancy. The improvement of insemination success after first lactation might look not so wonderful, but still, it demonstrates that even first lactation cows lose a lot of minerals during the first lactation, and these minerals are not sufficiently restored. This means reproduction system and also immune system are already exhausted after first lactation. And looking at the result of older cows, the weaker functioning of reproduction system and the immune system becomes a very big problem for the health of cows, for productivity, animal welfare, and of course, we need to mention again the costs for the farm. Here it is probably even more easy for the farmer to calculate the cost of two things: price per insemination and price per cow which do not start up. This result reflects not only insemination, it reflects the general status of animal health. Specialists of biology know that reproduction system is needed for survival of every species in the world. This means that if there is a lack of minerals, vitamins, or other feeding components, other body systems like respiratory, digestive, metabolic, liver, kidney, and other organs are affected earlier than reproduction system. Reproduction system is kept as a priority of the organism and longer than other systems. When we see this result of insemination success, we can discuss how it reflects general health status of cows. So let me finish what we could conclude from these preliminary findings. First of all, every cow is individual, the same like we humans. We all do not eat the same TMR. Everybody from us needs different food. The cow is not a simple unit of the herd, so they need different amount of different quantities of separate minerals and vitamins to keep being healthy. This project shows that what we as farmers or as consumers gain if animals are treated as individuals, and what results we got in a farm where individual mineral supplementation was tested. And last but not least, valid for probably most of diseases and cases, prevention is always better than treatment. And our results demonstrate what we have prevented already. Thank you very much for your attention, and I must say that these findings give us more understanding and of course more ideas to go for better animal care, lower usage of antibiotics and other drugs, lower pollution of our environment by drugs and especially antibiotics, higher quality of milk, better health status, lower costs, higher animal welfare, and other aspects which I have not mentioned. Thank you very much for your attention.
Okay, thank you, Rimantas. So thanks for this interesting presentation. I don't see any questions yet, but I do have one. So these results that you presented, will we see this come up in a scientific publication? And also, what are the plans for the future? Will you continue testing to find out more about what is going on?
Yes, I hope there will be a scientific publication of this with these results. And of course, we plan to continue testing because the farm, the owner and the veterinarian of the farm are got really interested, and they have not expected to see such nice results. So for sure, we will continue this work, and we'll continue collecting these data regarding health status and also regarding productivity. Okay,
great. And you mentioned also the cost savings and like less antibiotic treatments or other treatments. Do you have numbers about that as well?
Sorry?
About the reduction in costs and the reduction in treatment. I mean, mainly treatment costs, veterinarian costs. Did you collect numbers about that as well?
No, we have not collected and calculated these numbers.
Yeah, okay.
Not yet, I must tell, not yet. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I see a question that maybe you can also answer, if there is not a risk of overdosing some of the minerals and vitamins.
In principle, not, because if you saw the presentations before and the video about how Pitstop Plus works, the cow has the possibility to choose on its own wish if they want these minerals or not. And approximately from 70 to 80% of cows were coming to the Pitstop Plus feeder to get minerals. Some of them were not coming, and we saw that there were a lot of cows which were consuming very few minerals. Some of them were consuming more minerals. And there were also cows which were just standing and trying to get more and more minerals. But I don't know if it was mentioned, you can program the dose of minerals per day, per week. So depending on the composition of minerals, there is no risk of overdosing of these minerals. And using the individual supplementation, using Pitstop Plus, you can program and decide which dose of minerals or supplements, I must say, the whole mixture, each cow can get, and for what period of time.
Yeah, so you can really set like a day limit for each individual cow.
Yes, you can set one time limit, a day limit, a week limit, and also for the whole period, as we were testing only first 3 months of the lactation. So since the cow has electronic ear tag, it's recognized every time, and if the cow wants to get too much of minerals, it's not possible. She will simply not get it.
Okay. Well, thanks, Rimantas, for your interesting presentation, and we look forward to seeing the results. Yeah, thanks for answering these questions. So
thank you.
We will now move to the next presentation of Peter Stamp-Ennemark from Arla, who's going to present the current and future demands they have for their supplying farms.
A short presentation of Arla Foods. As you may know, Arla is a cooperative. Our farmers are our owners. Our farmers are living in 7 different countries, and all in all, we are nearly about 9,000 farmers in those 7 countries, as you can see here. We are also nearly 20,000 employees worldwide, dealing with a lot of different things in Arla. When we are talking about 2020, it was quite a good year. Our group revenue was about 10.6 billion euro. The performance price for the farmers were 36.9 euro cents per kilogram milk, and the milk volume was about 13.7 billion kilograms. Especially the brand growth was good in 2020, and when we are talking about brands in Arla, it's the Arla brand, and it's the Castello, and it's also the Lørpak brand, which are the main 3 brands in Arla. Arla Garden is our quality assurance program. We are saying that it's a quite pioneering initiative for dairy standards. We have developed it in a new setup last year in 2020. Arla Garden, the quality assurance program, consists of 4 cornerstones. It's milk quality, animal welfare, climate, nature, and people. Those 4 cornerstones have different kind of checkpoints, so that and standards, so that the farmers have to answer those questions and checkpoints in an online tool. They are doing it by quarterly self-assessment, and also the external audit is conducted not quarterly but every 3rd year. If there are no problems on farm, other problems on farm, of course there will be more audits on the farm. Here you have a picture of the online tool. It's online tool where the farmers can see different kind of categories. The checkpoints are divided into different kind of categories and subcategories, and he has to fill in, as I said before, 4 times a year. If there are so-called non-conformancies in the self-assessment, then the farmer will get a so-called action list where he can see what to correct and when to correct the non-compliance or the non-conformancies in Arla Garden. But remember, please, the self-assessment is followed up by an audit, not every time, but every 3rd year. Here you have some topics in regards to the questions or the checkpoints in Arla Garden regarding animal welfare. One big part is the assessment of all cows on mobility, cleanliness, lesion abbreviations, and body condition. Another big part is that the medicine part here, that it's especially a part of how to document the medicine, the use of medicine. This is also, of course, a very important part of animal welfare, but it could also be, or is also a very big part or important part of the food safety cornerstone in Arla Garden. So somehow it's covered both cornerstones. Other questions or checkpoints in Arla Garden regarding animal welfare, something regarding feed and feeding, and also regarding building and facilities. Of course, the feed has to be in a good quality, and in the tool it's described what we mean by good quality, both quality of water but also quality of feed. When we are talking about buildings and facilities, it's very important that the housing system is in a good shape, so that the animals are not hurt by different things in the housing system. When we are talking about animal welfare, we are looking into a little bit into the future in regards to what kind of topics may be important in the future, near future. Then we know that grazing is really an important part when we're talking about animal welfare, that the cows are not tethered. Is in some countries a big part of the discussions, that cow and calves are together more than only maybe 1 or 2 hours. culling of pregnant cows, clean and well-going cows. This is already a part of our quality assurance program, but also that the average lifespan of our cows has to be improved or has to be increased. Is also a big issue, a big topic discussed by a lot of consumers, but also customers. When we're looking into the calves topics, then early grouping and how the calves get their milk, and also that the calves are together with the calves, are very important topics we can look into in the future. For now, we not have for all this requirements, but we are discussing if or when it should be some kind of requirements of those topics mentioned here in this list for both cows and calves. Now to the climate check. The climate check includes two elements. One is the self-assessment, like Allergarten, and another part is the advisory visit. There are 6 steps in regards to the climate check. The farmer has to say yes, that he wants to submit data and get a visit. Then he will submit climate check data. He will get preliminary result. Then he will book a visit from an advisor. Together with the advisor, the farmer will review the data if they are correct or not correct. And again, based on this, if there are some changes, there will come a new report, and then the advice will be tailored based on the results in the report. Here are some kind of overview on themes in regards to what kind of information the farmers are putting in the climate check tool. It's a lot about feeding, the amount of feeding, the amount of animals, handling of manure handling, of feed, of course, energy. So it's very important that the farmers has access to all this kind of informations before he's starting to get to fill in the different informations and answers in the climate check. It's nearly 220 different kind of questions in the climate check tool. After putting in the data, the farmer will get a report. The report will consist of different results, overviews. One overview is this at the right, at the left, where it shows the topics, the most important topics in regards to the climate check. And when we are talking about climate check, then it's expressed as a kilogram of carbon footprint produced per kilogram produced milk. This is what we are dealing with, or the farmer are dealing with when we are talking about the climate check. Here you can see that especially digestion of feed by the animals are a big part, and most of you will know it, that this is really the biggest impact on the carbon footprint is the digestion of all the feed, but also handling of fertilizer, manure storage, and purchased feed is of course a part of the climate footprint. At the right table, the farmer has a good overview on different kind of topics again in regards to the climate check. Here he also shows a kind of comparable farms. There are different possibilities to look into what kind of farms he would like to compare with. And then he gets the result, and based on the color, he can see where he is, or if he is in a good shape or not so good shape in regards to the comparable farms. Those are the topics based on 2020, which are taken from the advisors' visit at the farms. And you can see here that especially the feed strategy and feed efficiency are a big part, but it's maybe also logical because the feed efficiency is really a big part of the carbon footprint. So therefore it's logical that this will be a big part of the discussion when the advisors are on farm. But also age at first calving is a big topic here in regards to minimize the feed, the number or the amount of used feed, mortality rate, the slurry, the manure handling are not so much discussed as the feed, but on the other hand, it's also, as you saw and at the last slide, is an important topic in regards to the climate check. So this short presentation, I would somehow have taken it into a few take-home message. One is that Arendse and climate check are ensuring and showing transparency and responsibility from our farmers. It's very important that data validation is okay. It's key for the whole setup that we are trust data. Arendse and climate check are also based for improvement on farms on farm level. It's not only a control tool, it's also a tool where the farmers can compare with each other and then hopefully make improvements on different kind of topics or issues on farm level. And when we look into the future, we know that there will come new requirements or maybe new standards in regards to develop both Arendse and climate check, so it will be adjusted. It's really a dynamic tool, so in the future there will come new requirements on both the climate checks and Arendse. Yes, thank you very much. This was my short presentation on Arendse, our quality assurance program, and climate check we are conducting in Arendse. Thank you very much.
Peter, for the interesting presentation. First question from the audience. The quarterly assessment of the cows, is that on each individual cow?
Yes, it's on each individual cow. So for big farms, it's quite time-consuming, but it's also a good tool to somehow to get a good overview on where are we in regards to our so-called animal welfare indicators. Those four I mentioned also in the presentation. I have to say that sorry for skipping the first slide. I think by occasion it was not a part of the presentation. So even my presentation of myself and my work were not a part of the presentation, but very shortly, yeah, my name is Peter Hinemark, and I'm responsible for the work on animal welfare in Arendse.
Yeah, thanks. My question was also mainly with the animal welfare, the Arendse garden. How is it perceived by the farmers, and how many are using it at the moment? And did that startup go easy?
Yeah, the perceiving of a quality assurance program is very different, of course. A lot of farmers are seeing it as a good tool somehow to get knowledge on what is required by customers, by consumers. So this is what we are trying to do by our quality assurance programs. It's a kind of brand protection, I would say, that we are aware together with our farmers that there are some quality, a very broad set quality parameters, indicators which have to be fulfilled. To the question regarding how many are following and or participating, it's 100% because it's mandatory.
Okay, thanks. On the climate check then, did you consider the CO2 binding of the plants eaten by the cows and the digestion output of TH4?
It's a good question because I'm not so familiar with the model in the climate check, but I think as far as I know it is somehow a part of the model how it's calculated. And when saying the model, it's a model developed together with the university in Denmark, Aalborg University, and it's based on the IDF guidelines.
Okay, yeah, thanks. And then a general question on I think the both assessment tools. Do you penalize poor performing farms or provide them with improvement guidance?
The last. Of course, if farmers have a lot of so-called non-conformancies, then they are in a situation where we have to handle. And depending on how serious the so-called non-conformancies are, we can sanction by not collecting the milk. This is the sanction when we are talking about a lot of non-conformancies and no handling when we are talking about requirements in Arendse in Arendse. When you're talking about the climate check, then they get an incentive of about one euro cent until for now. But in the future, and this is already from now on in principle, it's mandatory too.
Yeah, and but you work with advisors as well.
Yes.
To give them.
Yeah, every time the farmers get a report based on the data that they have put into the climate check tool, they will also get a booking of together with an advisor, so that they can discuss especially two things, or in broader perspective, two things. One thing is the data, if they are okay, and the other thing is what kind of, could we call it, what kind of topics do I have as a farmer to be aware of when we are talking about the climate check or the climate impact?
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much for this presentation. And so we already heard the health results from the testing of the precision supplementation, but now we will hear also the practical and productivity results from Ole Lamp.
Hello again. Now I'd like to start with my second presentation about the productivity results from the practical testing of the precision supplementation during the use case. First, I'm going to show you how we worked with the data, what the criteria were for valid data sets, and what the results finally were for the milk yield and the somatic cell count. Let's first take a look at the data that we got during the project. We had mainly the monthly milk recordings that came up during the use of the Pitstop Plus system in the farms. We collected these data, and we see that we had the two German farms that were in the project, and one Danish, one Latvian, and two Lithuanian farms. Most of the farms started in late summer to early autumn of 2019, and most of them were able to run the project for almost 1 year as it was planned. And as you can also see on the right hand side is that we had different supplement products that were used in the farms depending on the cooperating companies and depending on the preferences of the farms. First, I'd like to show you the results for the number of data sets that we could really finally use for the analysis. And you see that we could use one German farm with an almost complete data set, also in the Danish farm, and in the two Lithuanian farms this differed a bit. We had no daily milk yield data for the large Lithuanian farm. There were only data for somatic cell count and for energy corrected milk yield for 100 and 305 days, and we had a complete data set from the Latvian farm. When we put all the data in the analysis, then we could see that we had very similar groups. We had no significant differences between the control group and the test groups. The groups were quite large. On the right hand side you can see that we had several hundred cows or data sets that could be used for each variable, but the only tendency was with the somatic cell count, which was slightly lower in numeric values in the test group. Then we took all the data and put it into a mixed model analysis that included especially the effects of the lactation number and the calving season. As far as we had the data, we didn't get or could not get the data for all farms, so as you can see here we had a limited number of data sets of cows that could be used for the analysis, and the results were as follows. We had similar milk yield per day in both groups, but we had differences in the 100 and 305 days milk yield, so the test groups were both slightly lower than the control group. And the average cell count was only lower in numeric values, but it was not a significant difference. But let's then take a close look at the farm-specific results, especially here for the German farm. We had a numeric difference of 1 kilogram milk in daily average milk yield. So the test group was a bit higher in milk yield, but at least it was not statistically significant. The same was with the somatic cell count. Here the test group had a slightly lower somatic cell count than the control group, but also this was not significant in the statistics. We saw a similar situation for the Latvian farm, especially in the somatic cell count. Here we saw a numeric difference between both groups. So the test group had a lower somatic cell count than the control group, but also this was not significant in the test. You can see a quite high standard error in the plot. So this is just descriptive, but not yet significant. So what are the lessons learned from the productivity data analysis? At first, we have to state that all farms had a very good management and worked on a very high level. We had a high productivity, we had a low somatic cell count. This was very positive, but in these situations, some of you might know, it's very hard to improve something on this level just by changing one parameter. And we have to bear in mind that the main task of the project was to test and improve this novel feeder technology, and not to test different feed supplements and to improve these added supplements. So the differences between the products that we used in the project were quite large. On the one hand, we had mineral supplementation and the main idea in the Baltic farms, but we also had metabolic support products that were used in the German farms and the Danish farm, and we had antioxidants and rumen stabilizers that were included in the products used in Germany. So a bit different idea in the conception of these supplements. So it's quite logical that the effects may vary from farm to farm, and as you saw, there are numeric differences, but they are not very large and not large enough to really see them as a significant difference. So I thank you again for your attention, and now I'm open to answer your questions. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks again, Ole. If you could come online. Yes. Okay. My question is, were you expecting these results, or did it come out differently than was anticipated?
No, in general, I expected similar results, as we know from our own trials that we run with our dairy herd here in much more detailed way. It's very hard to see differences, positive effects on milk yield or milk quality with some supplements. This is often a point that it's very, very hard to change a high milk yield even a bit more upwards.
Yeah, indeed. And the same question as for Rimantas, but I suppose this will be the same answer. But what are the plans for the future? Will there be a continued testing where you will be involved as well?
So far, there are no precise plans for other testing. So far, this feeders were installed in the 2 German farms that we also worked with, and managed some of the occurring technical problems and issues. And maybe in the future we might use the system also at our own dairy farm at the trial groups, maybe to supplement something specifically, or even prepare cows in the transition phase directly with these feeder stations.
Okay,
we'll see.
Interesting. Yeah. And the German farms, they are continuing to use the product?
Yeah, they are both continuing. The one is Gerrit. He already talked today and gave his impressions, and the other farm is in Schleswig-Holstein. And they had the problem that they could not find the optimum place for the third feeder. So only the heifers had access when they started in the lactation to get to the feeder. So we could not get the data, but the system was running quite well at the end, and they will go on. And the next step is to arrange an automatic data transfer from the milk recording association so that the animal data, the animal number, and the expected calving date will go automatically into the web application that is used to control the feeders. So there will not be any double work to get these data in both systems.
Okay, very good. Yeah, that's a very good step for practical use. Okay, thanks, Ole, for your presentation.
Thank you.
Yeah. Our last presentation then is from Henning, and he will present the impacts and perspectives of the automated precision supplementation.
Hi, I'm Henning Lyngsø. I represent Organe Institute and also Microfeeder. I will speak about impacts and perspectives of automated precision supplementation, including relation to farm-to-fork strategies and UN's Global Sustainability Development Goals. Now let's start to look at the results we had from the practical IOF 2020 use case testbed activities. We have here an overview of somatic cell, disease events, and fertility. If we look at the somatic cell count, the test cows had 45,000 less cells per milliliter, which equals minus 15%. Concerning disease events, we had 25% less disease events among the test cows, and there are quite big number of cows behind these figures here. In these calculations I'm showing now, we are simply computing mathematically for all the registrations we have. Concerning the insemination per pregnancy, we also had better results, minus 0.07. For dead cows, we see minus 3%, and for not started, minus 5%. So summing up, we did, in average, not have any effect on the productivity, but we had a good effect at farms where the intake of supplements were acceptable. We had a higher effect than we expected on health parameters, and these effects were achieved despite teething issues. It means problems with the technology, which we started with as a minimum viable product. And to the right, you see, for instance, a cable that is falling apart, and we had to replace. We had a multiple testing under practical conditions, and therefore it was not exactly a feeding trial. We had large variations in cows' intake of supplements, for instance, due to flowability of supplements, which you see on the to the right also. We did not adjust the feeding plans for correct balancing with minerals and vitamins prior to the trials, and I'm sure if we did that, we would have seen higher effects. Now let's look at some important contextual factors for automated precision supplementation. Dairy cows have needs for 7 macrominerals, 8 microminerals, and 17 vitamins. It is especially the microminerals and the vitamins that are in focus in precision supplementation. TMR has many advantages, but it does not solve the dilemma of what we call a Gordian knot in dairy cow feeding. Some farms, especially the large dairy farms, use phase feeding, but many farms do not have the stable conditions so they could exactly separate the cows in groups comprising the critical period. For other farms, they would not use 2-3 hours extra labor per day to mix an extra ration and feed this out to the cows. Despite from that, some feed additives are not cost effective to use in the entire critical period. In order to handle this dilemma or Gordian knot in dairy cow feeding, it has become an industry standard to apply a safety factor in practice. We see here an analysis of a herd in Denmark where the bars shows the excess of minerals and vitamins given in addition to the norms. We see that for the macro minerals they are given an excess, also a safety factor of 53% more. For micro minerals 142% in average more, and for vitamins 235% more. If we visualize on the same lactation curves as earlier what this example of applying an industry standard in mineral supplementation means in practice, it looks like this here. Instead of giving microminerals according to the norms, which is 100% in the figure, is given 242%. And you see the red area which illustrates the excess of microminerals throughout the lactation. You can see that the excess is small or zero at some stage during the critical transition period. So the problem with the negative balance of microminerals in the critical transition period is hindered, but the red area represents a cost for the dairy farmer, and it also represents an environmental problem, because when the excess via the manure is ending on the fields, it is polluting the soils as heavy metals. But the protein supply of the transition cow may be the area of the widest perspectives for precision supplementation. The figure shows the negative balance of metabolizable protein of dairy cows through the first weeks after calving. By giving rumen-protected amino acids or other feedstuffs with a high availability of amino acids in the intestines, we could lower the protein levels in the feed rations and raise the productivity of the dairy cows. So we need to rethink dairy cow supplementation. Current supplementation practices, they are unacceptable from a dairy business economy and an environmental perspective. Precision supplementation means in its essence that the level of minerals, vitamins and protein in the TMR is lowered, while the needs of the transition cows are met. With this slide here, I show the economic impact using a German farm as an example. The registered effects we had, they are multiplied with economic figures, and in total you see the value of the system of 246 euro per cow per year, and this includes costs for the mineral supplements, in this case 37 euro. It also includes the price for depreciation of the Pitstop Plus system, which is only 3 euro. This slide shows the estimated environment and climate impacts, assuming a 2% productivity increase and 38% reduction in enteric methane production from dairy cows. In that case, one cow would reduce emissions of nitrogen with 10 kilo, phosphorus 1.5 kilo, ammonia 2.4 kilo, and CO2 equivalents of 5.59 ton. We can also see what this would mean for a large dairy farm or for a wider marketing of the Pitstop Plus system. And this means that the precision supplementation is a concept that contributes to several of UN's global sustainability goals. This slide shows how EU's Green Deal and Farm-to-Fork strategy in a structured way support United Nations global sustainability goals. It also shows how automated precision supplementation has the potential to become an important solution for realizing EU's farm-to-fork strategy. So the overall outcome for us of the iOS 2020 use-bed activities are that we are more convinced of a need for rethinking dairy cow supplementation, and that automated precision supplementation can solve the Gordian knot in current dairy cow supplementation practices, but also provide the practical and economic solution for use of effective feed additives and thereby give benefits to dairy farm economy and raise the ethic quality of dairy produce. We have been able to optimize the automated precision supplementation technology due to better understanding of the practical market conditions. While we now consider automated precision supplementation as a market-ready technology, we also realize that more testing and verification is needed to make the technology officially recognized for its impacts on dairy productivity, animal welfare, environment and climate. Keeping in mind that this is both dealing with some hardware, IoT technology, but also some supplements. Thank you very much, and you are very welcome if you have any questions or comments, and also to write to me afterwards. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Henning. I do not see any questions in the chat, no, it's an answer that I see passing by. We have 1 minute left in the webinar, so do you have any concluding remarks that you would like to add?
No, thank you very much to all participants. It shows that the subject we have chosen here is somehow relevant, and so I'm just recommending to look more at the web pages, which was also informed in the invitation. It means on pitstopplus.eu, as I informed in the chat, but also on iOS 2020 you can find information about our use case. And at Organe DK, we will publish the presentations and also the entire recording of this webinar shortly after the webinar. And of course, you are very welcome to contact me or any of the other presenters if you have specific questions that we didn't succeed to find time to answer during this, or whether it's something more specific you just want to have a communication about with each individual of us. We are convinced that we are working with some important issue, and we will for sure in different ways continue our work with precision supplementation. Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot. Thanks to all the speakers as well for being present. Thanks, Henning, for organizing this webinar, and thanks to Ole for arranging the technical things with the platform. So I want to thank you all and wish you a nice day and a nice weekend. Bye.